So let's do a quick recap of what we discussed about karma yesterday. We discussed that when we take birth, we don't have the same starting point. But that does not mean that the Lord is partial. The Lord is always impartial. And we discovered that the reason why we have different starting points because of our past activities and also the desires as well that get carried from life to life to life to life. We also understood that there are different meanings to the word karma, but holistically speaking, karma means any activities that you perform, the results that you get of those activities, and the entire system of actions and reactions constitutes karma. We also discovered that in the 17th shloka of chapter 4, the Lord defines or categorizes karma into two. One is what the Lord calls karma, which is the same as punya, which is you are acting according to Vedic scriptures. The second is the Lord categorizes those activities as vikarma, which means anything that we do that violates the scriptures, where we're not following the scriptures. So in reality, because none of us are proficient in scriptures, so most of us grow up not really knowing what should be done and what should not be done. Maybe at a very high level, our instincts or our sense of consciousness or conscience tells us, hey, what you're doing is wrong. We are taught basic things like we should speak the truth, we should be kind, we should help others. So some basic truths we are taught, or rather, even if we are not taught by our parents or by the education system, we discover this ourselves. There are certain things that are right, there are certain things that are wrong. But we also discussed that it's not as simple as that, because every single action that you perform in life has a consequence. Actually, this concept of karma applies only to human beings. So when you have a human form, then this concept of punya and papa applies to you. So the third category that the Lord defines for Arjuna, which he calls inaction or akarma. Inaction does not mean that you don't do anything. Inaction, the way the Lord is defining inaction, is actually acting according to the scriptures and for the pleasure of pleasing the Supreme Lord. So you can act according to the scriptures and not have the Supreme Lord in the picture. That would result in punya. But if you perform those same duties and responsibilities, but you're doing it to please the Supreme Lord, that is called akarma. So we discussed that the Lord reveals the secret. It's an open secret of how to avoid karma, how to avoid this cycle of papa and punya. The Lord reveals it very openly. He says a very intelligent person understands what action and inaction is and what inaction and action is. So very simply, the Lord is saying, I have given you the intelligence. And if you've understood this basic difference between papa, punya, and sukriti, then you will go out of your way to only perform sukriti all the time. Because if you perform sukriti all the time, you don't encounter papa and punya. The fascinating thing about this is that it doesn't matter how many lifetimes you have had births in the past. If you perform even a little bit of sukriti today, it can wipe out all of the punya and papa from previous lifetimes, and also whatever you are doing in this lifetime as well. Why is that? If you remember the analogy that we talked about, a warrior, when he fights on behalf of his government and does an excellent job, he gets recognized for his performance through awards. That same warrior, if he violates the laws of the government outside the battlefield, he will get punished. That same analogy applies to us. We can either make a choice of working for Krishna or working against Krishna. If we work for Krishna, we get awarded with Sukriti. If we work against Krishna, then we have to face the consequences of the good and bad that we do. The secret could not be any more simpler than this concept, that every one of us will go out of our way to please the Supreme Lord. That's all he wants from you and me. So that is actually a karma. So we also used the cricket score analogy that's actually used by His Grace Chaitanya Sharan Prabhu to explain how we've all played prior innings, and therefore the scoreboard is different for each one of us at birth, which explains why some people are born rich, some people are born poor, some people are beautiful, some people are not, some people are powerful, some people are powerless. So you will always see this duality in life. That's because of our past activities. So I have a question for you. In the Ramayana, we have two personalities. We have Ravana and we have Dasharath. What is similar between the two of them? What do they have in common? You can raise your hand and I will call your name. What's common between Ravana and Dasharath? Yes, Sindhu.
I guess both of them ignored the presence of Lord Rama. Like Dasharatha kind of sent him to forest, and then Ravana, though like Rama was present in front of him, he kind of ignored his presence.
Well, Lord Ram didn't reveal himself as a Supreme Lord. So That's okay. Any other different, any other, what I'm asking is, okay, so you're saying both of them didn't recognize the Lord. So that's one thing that's common. What are the other things? Anybody else?
Both were kings, but one is with the positive.
Let's only
energy.
stick to what is common between them. Both are kings.
Both,
Very good.
yes, both
Okay.
were kings.
What else? What else is common between them? If they are kings, do you think they are very wealthy, both of them?
Yes, Mataji.
They are wealthy. They're both very powerful.
Yes.
They have a whole number of resources. They can do whatever they want. So now let's look at what are the differences between the two of them. So they are both kings. They're both successful. They're both powerful. So in reality, we could say neither one of them had anything lacking in life. So now let's look at what are the differences between them. What are the differences between Dasharatha and Ravana? Let's look at their qualities. What are the qualities that Ravana had?
Ravana was, Dasharatha was pious.
Was
and
pious,
Ravana
yes.
was not.
Was not, yes.
And
Very good.
Dasharatha was Kshatriya, and I believe Ravana was not.
Yes. Ravana was actually born to a
Brahmin, right?
Brahmin, yes.
Yeah.
But then he acquired Kshatriya-like qualities. He didn't.
Yeah.
Remember, we discussed in the first class where the Lord talked about what it means to be a Brahmana. You have to demonstrate certain qualities, isn't it? Like peacefulness,
Right,
tolerance, kindness, self-awareness, self-realization. All of these qualities belong to a Brahmana. So yes, so one of the things that we discovered is that in the first class is that nobody is born into any varna. You have to qualify yourself. So if you want to be a Kshatriya, you have to develop tendencies and qualities that says that you are a Kshatriya. So similarly, Vaishya, Brahmana, etc. So good, but by birth, yes, Ravana was born to a Brahmin and Dasharatha was a Kshatriya. A very important difference is that Dasharatha was pious. Can we say Ravana tried to be pious because he was a great devotee of
Lord Shiva?
Lord Shiva. So he was also worshipping Lord Shiva. What do you think is wrong there? Or is there anything wrong? He was worshipping Lord Shiva.
No, there's nothing wrong in worshipping Lord Shiva, but probably his intentions weren't right.
Yes. What was he worshipping for?
Yeah. He was trying to, conquer the world, to become eternal, basically. He was trying to,
yes. He
so,
was telling his residents, I will build a staircase to heaven. You don't have to do anything. Climb up and go. I'll make things easy for you. That was his plan. Isn't it? So it's the intent of the prayer also. But let's also look at prayer in a slightly different way. Let's take a silly example of a soccer match. Say Germany is playing, I don't know, Italy. So you have players on both sides. And the people who support Germany are praying to the Lord, my dear Lord, please, whatever happens, let the Germans win. Similarly, the Italians are also sending a silly little prayer to the Lord, saying, my dear Lord, let the Italians win. I'm just taking a very mundane example. So in order for Germany to win, that means Italy has to lose. Yes? In order for Italy to win, Germany has to lose. But both sides are praying for the outcome that they want. Whose prayer is the Lord going to listen to? Both want the same thing. But if both want the same thing, which means one person has to be successful, the other person has to lose. Is that making sense? So if I pray for something, let us say I am appearing for an interview, 10 other candidates are appearing for an interview. I am praying to the Lord, please make me successful. The other 9 candidates, if they are also pious, they are also praying to the Lord, please let me get this job. For me to get the job, that means 9 other people should not get that job. That doesn't mean they are a failure. Maybe they'll get a job elsewhere. So there are certain kinds of prayers that the Lord responds to with love. And there's certain kinds of prayers the Lord responds with reluctance. So even when we pray, we should know what we should pray for. Ravana was praying for, I should be the most powerful, nobody should be able to defeat me. Whereas if you're a genuinely pious person, your prayer will be, let me be a good human being. Let me not harm others. Let me be of benefit to the society. That's a different kind of prayer. And an even more exalted prayer than simply asking the Lord to allow you to be kind and good to everybody. A higher prayer than that is asking the Lord to engage you in his service. That's the highest form of prayer. To ask the Lord to be used as an instrument in his service. So in today's class, we are going to briefly talk about the importance of Jivatma. And we said that one thing that distinguishes us from all the other Jivatmas, if we take on a human form, is that we are given the highest level of intelligence. We can use that intelligence to obey the Lord, or we can use that intelligence to do whatever we want. To do whatever we want means to disobey the Lord. It's as simple as that. The Lord prefers it that if you do your best to obey him. But if you constantly knock on his door and ask him, give me this, give me that, give me the other thing, or whatever it is, although he knows that it's not ultimately good for you, because you're adamant with your prayer, reluctantly he'll give it to you. Therefore, we need to understand karma in the framework of the fact the Lord is simply reciprocating with your desire. So everything begins with our desire. So we have to learn to change our desire, because we cannot live without desire. If you didn't have the desire to do something, you wouldn't wake up in the morning. So something has to inspire you, whether it's taking care of your family or getting good marks in school or earning nice money so that you can take care of your family, whatever it is. Something has to inspire you to wake up in the morning. So all of us will have desires. What is the desire that the Lord wants you to have is something that we need to read the scriptures to figure out. But the Lord is not telling you give up your desires. That's not what he's telling you. He's saying use your intelligence. If you've understood the scriptures, you will have the right kind of prayers, the right kind of desires. And then this is actually going to lead to universal brotherhood. So today's topic is, who am I? We already discussed in the first class that when the question is asked, who am I? What do we say? You know, I am such and such a person. I'm daughter of, wife of, child of, sister of, etc., etc. We have many, many titles that we carry with us. And this title is temporary as long as we occupy this body. The minute we give up the body, the title is going to change to something else. But one title remains with us eternally. And that title is that I am a spirit soul who's occupying this body. That basic philosophy has been established. So now what is so unique about the Jivatma? We're going to run through some slides very quickly so we understand actually what is the difference here. So let's offer our humble obeisances to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we are going to get into some technical aspects today. What's the difference between the body and soul? Actually, what is the soul and what's the nature of the soul? How does reincarnation work? And really, what is Arjuna's dilemma? He's decided he doesn't want to fight. And we've already discussed the reasons yesterday. So Krishna is going to defeat his reasons one by one by educating him and guiding him. And the very first thing Krishna does to defeat Arjuna's first excuse is, I am more compassionate than Dronacharya and Bhishma. They may want to kill me, but I don't want to kill them. So Arjuna is saying, my intelligence and my consciousness is so elevated, I am so compassionate. I don't want to kill. And Krishna says, your compassion for the body does not make sense. Because even if you kill them, they are going to take on a new body. So what exactly is your compassion going to do? Any which way, they have to die. The only thing is, are they going to die on the battlefield or are they going to die somewhere in some other fashion? So what exactly are you being compassionate about, Arjuna? Because you are a Kshatriya. On the battlefield, compassion cannot come into the picture. You're a warrior. So in that context, in chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord begins to describe in detail the soul, the characteristics and the feature of the soul. And we're going to go through some slides that talk about these differences. So you may ask, what's the big deal? Why do I need to know what's the difference between the body and the soul? How does it benefit me? Why should I care? I have so many other problems that I'm trying to solve. This is a little too much to be paying attention to. I have other priorities. Why do I need to know this? Well, there are benefits to knowing that you have to leave this body one day. Because when you know that nothing is permanent in this material world, and we all come together and then we all separate. We come together and separate, and this pattern keeps being repeated. In one lifetime, you may be a woman. In the next lifetime, you may take a body of a male. In one lifetime, you may be a human being. In another lifetime, you may be a dog or a cow or a cat or a lion or a worm or a pig. So the benefit of knowing who you really are is that it allows you to focus on what is really important. Yes, the body is important because we all have to learn to maintain it. Nothing wrong there. The Lord doesn't say, ignore your body and only focus on the soul. All the Lord is saying is, balance the two out. Body is important. You have to take care of the body. What about the soul? So when you realize that you are actually an eternal soul, it should free you up from doing things that are going to cause the degradation of that soul, or the degradation of the consciousness of that soul. It also removes the burden of fear and lamentation and illusion. If you understand, I'm just going to change clothes frequently. And if you've decided, I don't want to change clothes frequently, I want to go back to my original body that I had, the spiritual body that I had, then you will make a plan to not wanting to change clothes ever again. And if you come to this understanding, then you will see every other Jivatma as a child of the Supreme Lord. And therefore, you will not find fault in them. You will not have enmity towards them just because they have a different color skin, or they are living on that side of the mountain or that side of the river. That country is called something else. This country is called something else. These divisions you will not see. The only thing you will see that every single Jivatma belongs to the Supreme Lord. And therein comes the concept of universal brotherhood. When you understand this, your outlook on life will change, your attitude will change, your behavior will change, your conduct will change. Your goal in life will change. We already talked about the benefits of mantra. And because you understand that everything is the property of the Lord, you will never misuse your father's property. You have the right to your father's property, but you will not misuse your father's property. Because misusing your father's property means you're depriving somebody else of that resource, which means we have the right to take care of the basic needs for ourselves as per our varnashrama, but we shouldn't be greedy for too much. We should aspire for just enough to take care of ourselves and our family, but it shouldn't be only I should get all the money, I should get all the power, I should get all the fame, and I want to defeat everybody else. That should not be the attitude. Yeah. Essentially, you're not competing with anybody else anymore. Can you imagine if you don't have to compete with somebody else anymore? What a relief it is. But then throughout our education system, you're taught to compete all the time. Not that you shouldn't do your best. Definitely, if you're talented, we should always strive to do our best. By the way, Lord Krishna also talks about throughout the Bhagavad Gita, how we should work hard and how we should work for perfection. We should try to be perfect in everything that we do. That's what Krishna wants. But we should never be satisfied with being perfect. We should go beyond that. We should always raise the bar for ourselves to become a better human being. So let us see, who are these people? So you have top left. Who's that? Anybody knows who that is? Top left.
Mother Teresa.
Yeah. Who's on the top left? Yes, Jyoti.
Mother Teresa.
Mother Teresa. Below Mother Teresa? Below Mother Teresa, who's that?
I don't know.
Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela.
And below Nelson Mandela?
Obama.
Obama.
Barack Obama. Okay. In the middle, who's on the top?
A.R. Rahman.
And below that?
Roger Federer.
The tennis player. And
Roger
below
Federer.
She's
Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah. Okay. Right top?
Einstein.
Einstein. Middle?
Tom.
Steve Jobs.
Yeah,
The
Steve
founder
Jobs.
of Apple. And below that?
Elizabeth.
Queen Elizabeth. Okay.
Queen Elizabeth.
Yes. So you can see all their photos now. Now look at these photos. Can you tell me who's who? Those same 9 people, their photos are here.
Very difficult.
Very difficult. Why? Their photos are here in the next slides. Okay, let us see. Who's on the top? I'll give you, go back to the previous slide. Remember the 9?
Mother Teresa.
Teresa, Rahman, Einstein, Roger Federer, Nelson Mandela, Steve Jobs, Barack Obama, Oprah, and Queen Elizabeth. So remember these 9 and tell me whose photos these are here. Next slide. Okay, who's in the middle? I think that is easy. Who's in the middle here?
Queen
The
Elizabeth.
queen is on the middle row right side. I think it's the queen.
Actually, all the middle row is the Queen Elizabeth. From when she was a baby to a youngster to being a mother. Okay, so then top row, who do you think that is?
Einstein.
Einstein. Bottom row?
Federer.
Federer, yes, this is Federer as a baby, as a little kid. And then again, I guess when he started playing tennis. Okay, next slide. Who's this on the top?
Nelson Mandela.
These are photos of Nelson Mandela.
Mother Teresa in between.
In the middle, this is Mother Teresa. Okay, next one.
Obama.
Obama is on the bottom. Yes, these are his childhood photos and young as a youth. This is Oprah on the top. This is A.R. Rahman in the middle. And this is Steve Jobs' photos at the bottom. So what changed And what didn't change? So their body underwent changes. But even though the body underwent change, we still said they are the same person. Their looks may have changed, their proportions may have changed, but still we accepted them as the same person. Why? Because internally we all know they are the same person because something else is in that person, even though externally the body is undergoing so many changes. But then we said that's the same person. So that means something is staying the same, something is changing in us. The one thing that is staying the same is the soul. The thing that is changing in us is the external body. So the factor that is common here is that the soul is constant. You look at this cartoon on the left. So this is a mother being wheeled into the hospital. She's about ready to give birth. Then the baby goes onto a pram. So she's on the wheels here. Baby's in the wheels here. Wheels here, wheels here. You can see until you go into the crematorium, you're still going on wheels into the crematorium. This is life. So the wheels keep changing, but ultimately the wheels that brought you into the hospital, those same wheels take you into the crematorium. This is a fact of life. But through this process, we begin to think we are the kings, we are the owners, we are the proprietors, we are the controllers. What is Krishna saying in chapter 8? Abrahma bhuvana lokaha punaravartinorjuna mam upetyatu taunteya punarjanmana vidyate. The Lord is telling Arjuna, from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So again, the Lord is revealing a secret. The Lord is saying, as long as you keep performing karmic reactions and karma and accumulating all these karmic reactions, you have to take birth and death again and again. So what is the trick? Krishna is saying, if you come back to your original house, which is my house, then you don't have to take birth again. So Krishna is telling you that there is a better place for you to go live. Which is that place? It's Krishna's house. So he is saying, come back to your father's house. Do you know how? When children are very young, they want to go and play in the playground, and the mother will keep saying, come back home, it's getting late. Come back, you have to do your homework. Come back, you have to do this. Come back, it's getting dark. So we are like that little children. We don't want to listen to Krishna. Krishna says, come back. Come back home. Enough playing, enough experimenting with your life. At some point, you have to come back home. When are you going to have that interest to come back home? So Krishna is constantly calling you, saying, come back home. Very rarely do we listen to him, because we're too caught up playing that I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a CEO, whatever it is. I'm a painter, I'm a designer. We have all these titles, right? We get attached to these titles. Krishna is saying, give up all those titles, because those titles are temporary. The only title that matters is that you are my child and I want you back home. The highest planet in the material world is where Lord Brahma lives, and it's called Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. Even Brahma has to die. That's what Krishna is saying. All the different devatas that there are also have to die. So as long as we are within this material universe, Krishna is saying, you have to undergo suffering. The only way we can stop this suffering is we make a plan to go back to Krishna. So the wheels of life that you're seeing here is birth, death, old age, disease. These four things applies to all Jivatmas. If you are born as a plant, you are going to survive for some time and then you're going to die. If you are born as an animal, same cycle. Born as a human, same cycle. If you take on a position of one of the devatas, same cycle. Great rishis, same cycle. There is no exception to this rule. So Krishna is saying this is the problem of human life. Doesn't matter if you're in the upper planetary systems in heavens, or if you're in the middle planetary systems like the earthly planets, or if you're in Patal Lok, where you have to suffer quite a bit more than what you would suffer in this earthly planet. So Krishna, as I mentioned in chapter 2, begins to talk about the difference of the difference between the body and the soul. So Krishna says in Shloka 23, Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, na chainam kledayantyapo, na shoshayati marutaha. Krishna is now going to describe the soul. There are many, many shlokas where Krishna is describing the soul. We will only cover 1 or 2 shlokas. Krishna is saying the soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. So when we enter the crematorium, the body will get burnt. The soul simply exits the body. The soul does not undergo any degradation. It is always eternal and it will remain so. But then, if we have accumulated karma, then the soul will just enter a new body after a certain period of time. So now we're going to get into a little technical detail where the Lord talks about transmigration of the soul and the changes that the body undergoes. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptihi dhirastatrana muhyati. Krishna is saying, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So just as we showed all those photos of those various famous personalities, Krishna is saying very simply, the body has undergone so many changes, the soul has stayed the same. The same thing happens. When the soul is ready to leave the body, it just leaves the body and takes on another body. It's as simple as that. So there is nothing to be afraid of. It's just natural, Krishna says. But then we have different types of bodies. As per the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord talks about the gross body and the subtle body. The gross body is this physical body that we see. The subtle body is made up of mind, intelligence, and this false sense of I, the false ego that says, I am woman, I am wife, I am daughter, I am this, I am that. All that constitutes your ego. And then residing within this body is the soul. So when you die, you give up your gross body. You keep the subtle body. The subtle body travels with you till you take on a new body. So the accumulation of all of your memories, all of your intelligence, and of course that sense of I simply moves into a new body. Then you may ask, but how come I don't remember all my past births? If my subtle body has been traveling with me over millions of lifetimes, how is it that I don't remember anything of it? Very rarely do people remember their previous births, and still it is not possible to remember all your previous births. Krishna answers that question. Krishna says, from me come remembrance, intelligence, and forgetfulness. If Krishna wants you to remember your past lives, you will remember. If Krishna wants you to forget what you did in the past so you can have a fresh start, he'll make you forget. So even though the subtle body is traveling into the next body, you may not necessarily remember what you were in your past life. But what will happen is all of the tendencies that you have acquired over multiple lifetimes, you will simply carry into the next body. So let us say at the time of death, at the time that you're leaving the body, let's say you have a lot of worries. Who will do this? I was not able to fulfill this desire. I still want to live for a longer time. So as long as you have those desires, I want to do this, I want to do that, who will take care of my family if I die? Who will pay my bills? What will happen to my wife? What will happen to my children? If you have these worries at the time of death, because at the time of death, your entire life will flash before you in your mind. But if you carry that worry, then you have to take on another body to fulfill that desire that you have. Oh, I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. I didn't accomplish this. I didn't accomplish that. Then Krishna says, as long as you have this desire, I have to give you another body because you're not happy. You're still trying to fulfill that desire. So this is how we carry what is called the vasanas from one body to another, the tendencies from one body to another. But the soul is pure, Krishna says. The soul is always Satchidananda. Nothing can touch the soul. The soul does not get contaminated. The symptom of the soul is consciousness. The minute the soul exits the body, consciousness is gone. The body cannot do anything anymore. It remains inert. So when the soul exits the body, consciousness is gone. Finished. When the life force has gone, nothing else can be done with that body. So this is an important factor for us to understand that we have a physical body, we have a subtle body. At the time of death, the subtle body travels with you until the soul occupies a new body. At the time of liberation, the soul gives up both the physical body and the subtle body. So as Krishna says, if you come back home to me, you don't have to take birth again. But to go back to Krishna's home, we have to give up both the bodies, the physical body and the subtle body. Which means we cannot have any desires to be in this material world anymore. You have to give up this attachment of, I am this, I am that, etc. I have so many desires I'm trying to fulfill. So moksha or liberation, one definition of moksha or liberation is that you give up your gross body as well as the subtle body, and you're ready to enter the spiritual world, right? To go back home to Krishna, you have to give up both the sthula sharira as well as the sukshma sharira. So from these various shlokas in chapter 2, as we mentioned, Krishna talks about the details of the features of the soul. Krishna says the soul is eternally an individual. So even when you go to the spiritual world, you're going to maintain your individuality. The difference is, in the spiritual world, you will take back your original spiritual body. So you will acquire a spiritual body that will not undergo any changes. Krishna says the soul is unborn, meaning it always existed. There was never a time where the soul has never existed. If the Lord is eternal, the soul is eternal, because we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. The soul cannot be destroyed. The soul also cannot be measured. It cannot be cut, it cannot be burnt, it cannot be dried, or it cannot be become wet. The soul is invisible and inconceivable. We cannot imagine what the soul is. But we understand that the soul exists because we see, because of the presence of soul, changes are taking place in the body. If the soul was not present in the body would not undergo changes. And the most important thing to remember is that when the soul gets separated from Krishna, the soul is always seeking Krishna everywhere. The soul misses being at home and is searching for Krishna everywhere in this material world in the form of happiness. But because the consciousness is not in its original state of purity, the consciousness makes you believe that you can be happy in this world. But the soul cannot be happy when it is separated from Krishna. So the original constitutional position of the soul is Satchidananda. The Lord is also Satchidananda. So the qualities of the Lord are Sat, Chit, and Ananda. The qualities of the soul are also Sat, Chit, and Ananda, but in its original state. Krishna says the soul is in the heart of the Jivatma. And there are other scriptures that describe the size of the soul. Although the Lord has said it is immeasurable, yet there is a measurement given of the size of the soul. So if you were to pluck one hair off your scalp and cut the tip of the hair into 100 parts, and take one of those 100 parts and cut that one into another 100 parts, that is the size of the soul. It cannot be seen by any machinery. But at the same time, the soul does not undergo the 6 changes that the body undergoes. In Shloka 27, the Lord is talking about transmigration. Again, Jatasya hidruvo mrityuhu dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmada pariharyerte natvam shochitum arhasi. Krishna is telling Arjuna, one who has taken his birth is sure to die. And after death, one is sure to take birth again. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, you are saying, oh, if I kill, I will commit so many sins. Krishna is saying you are a Kshatriya. You wouldn't worry about killing anybody in the previous battles. Why suddenly you're worried about killing? Don't you know that the soul is going to go occupy a new body? So why are you complaining and lamenting? What are you feeling this compassion for? What is your fear about? Dronacharya will take a new body. Bhishmadev will take a new body. Every soldier that loses their life on the battlefield will take a new body. So why are you lamenting? You are a Kshatriya. Your dharma is to fight, to uphold religious principles. So don't get confused about your duty simply because it's a difficult situation. You need to continue to perform your duty and responsibility. So this is how Krishna is defeating Arjuna's argument that, oh, if I kill them, what will happen? Well, if you kill them, they'll take a new body, Krishna says, don't worry. And how many different kinds of bodies you can take? Oh, as we discussed yesterday, the wardrobe that Krishna gives you is gigantic. 84 lakh types of bodies you can desire. Why this strange number 84 lakhs? Where did this come from? It is said that the Jivatma has 84 lakh types of desires. For every type of desire, there's a body. So that's where this 84 lakh species comes from. It aligns to different desires that we have. So Krishna is saying, knowing this, you should choose your body very wisely. So in the Vishnu Purana, in the Padma Purana, there is a breakup of this 84 lakh. So the number of species that reside in water, different types of bodies, there are 9 lakh varieties of bodies that reside in water. So keep in mind, these numbers don't apply just to the earth. These numbers apply to the entire material cosmos. There are 20 lakh different bodies in the form of trees and plants. So you can also take birth as a tree, depending on your desire. There is 11 lakh different bodies for insects and reptiles. These are species, not the count of the soul. These are just varieties. You know, like if you go to a shop and you want to purchase a skirt, well, there are different varieties, different cuts, different lengths. Similarly, in birds, there are 10 lakh different types of birds. Quadruples means 4-legged animals. There are 30 lakh different bodies that you can occupy if you want to be a 4-legged animal. And for human beings, which is very rare, there are only 40,000 different types of human bodies. This includes the bodies occupied by devatas. So even in human species, there are 40,000 different types of human bodies that you can get. Not all of them reside on this earthly planet. So Krishna is saying, be careful. Karma is so powerful, it can trap you in any body. So if you're wise, you will figure out, you'll make a plan, get out of this place. But you will discover more as you attend the advanced Bhagavad Gita class. So what is Arjuna's dilemma? Any decision that he was making was based on the body. So he was saying, my family, my friends, my colleagues, how can I do this to them? Krishna is saying, you are a Kshatriya. The best thing a Kshatriya can do is to fight, to defeat evil. So the Kauravas are sinful. And therefore, death is the best punishment for anybody who is sinful. Because why? Through death, it brings an end to their sinful activities. They take a new body and get a fresh start. So sometimes death is necessary on the battlefield or through a death penalty, because it will bring an end to that person's sinful tendencies and activities. They take on a new body and get a fresh start. So Arjuna is asking Krishna, why is killing acceptable? Definitely, why should I kill my own family? So, well, you have to put a stop to the adharmic ways of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana for the larger good of society. So Arjuna is presenting various arguments to Krishna as to why he should not fight and why he should walk away and become a sannyasi in the forests. But as Krishna defeats his arguments one by one, Arjuna is forced to submit himself to Krishna and saying, you're right. Something is wrong with me. I've become weak. I've lost sight of what is actually important. So the crisis that Arjuna is experiencing is an identity crisis. Keep in mind, where was the Bhagavad Gita spoken? Generally, good advice and philosophy is spoken in a quiet place, in a peaceful place, when both parties have time to ask questions. Can you imagine getting this kind of advice on a battlefield? It's very noisy. It's a disturbing place. But still, Krishna very patiently answers Arjuna's questions and doubts one by one. So the 5 reasons that Arjuna gives to Krishna as to why he shouldn't fight is, I'm more compassionate. After killing them, I will not be able to enjoy the kingdom. I'm better than them, so let them have the kingdom. I'm not interested in the kingdom. I will go beg for a living. A Kshatriya is not allowed to beg. That's one rule of being Kshatriya. But Arjuna says, I'd rather beg. Another reason Arjuna gives is, so many sins I'm committing. And I'm destroying families and I'm destroying family traditions. So the conflict for Arjuna was, should he protect his family or should he protect society? Which duty is more important? So even for us in our life, sometimes duties will come in conflict. And you have to use your intelligence to figure out which duty is the higher duty. So imagine, here the conflict for Arjuna was, should I protect my own family or should I protect the kingdom? Kula Dharma versus Kshatriya Dharma. And in this case, Krishna tells him, Kshatriya Dharma, because that is for the higher good. And sometimes, for the sake of higher good, you have to sacrifice your own family. It's not an easy decision to make. It creates a lot of turmoil. You can imagine the turmoil that Arjuna would have been going through when he suddenly realized he had to kill the elders that he respected so much, that he worshipped so much. So Krishna uses different frameworks to tell Arjuna why fighting is the only outcome he has, or rather the only choice he has to make. So first, he uses analytics or logic to explain to Arjuna, there is no death for the soul, so don't worry, fight, because they will all take on a new body. The second reason that Krishna gives to Arjuna is, well, all of us have to perform our duties and responsibilities as per the Shastra, as per Varna, as per Ashram. So because you have to perform your duties and responsibilities, just do your duty and responsibility, and whatever results you get, enjoy it, which is karma kanda. Another way of looking at the same situation, Krishna tells Arjuna is, well, you know you have to do your duty and responsibility. Let's say you don't want the kingdom, you don't want the enjoyment of it. Then at least fight without being attached to the results. Have this knowledge that you have to protect dharma, do your duty, become detached from the results. This is buddhi yoga. Actually, this is also Krishna consciousness. Then Krishna, in the end of the second chapter, tells Arjuna, fight because I'm asking you to fight. Sthita prajna, which means become determined. I am here to advise you. So become fixed up, because your duty is to please me. Therefore, don't worry about the consequences, because I'm taking care of it. So here, two important things we need to remember. Remember, we began in the first class by explaining why spirituality is important, why reading the Bhagavad Gita is important, why prayer is important, why chanting is important. When you practice spirituality, or as a result of your practice, your vision broadens. So Krishna is saying, use a broader vision, because spiritual vision leads to material victory too. And spiritual vision also leads to spiritual victory. So you get the best of the both worlds when you're practicing spirituality. You can either fight and win and enjoy the kingdom, or if you fight and you end up dying on the battlefield, O Arjuna, you still win, because you will go to the heavenly kingdoms for all the good deeds that you have done. So in reality, you have not lost. You may have lost your body, but immediately you are going to go promoted to the heavenly planets. And Krishna says the same thing will happen to the others who have lost their life on the battlefield. They'll go straight to heaven to enjoy themselves, because any Kshatriya who dies in a battle goes to the heavenly planets for the next body. So Krishna is saying, even if you want to do this profit and loss calculation, the ultimate calculation is that you have to please me. So Krishna concludes chapters 2 by telling Arjuna, just focus on your duty. Don't worry about, will this happen? Will that happen? Will I be happy? Will I be sad? All these things you don't worry about. Stay singularly focused on your duty and responsibility. So throughout the Bhagavad Gita, as I mentioned yesterday, Krishna is going to consistently come back to the theme that each one of us must do our duties and responsibilities. Krishna also says, you may not be best at doing your duty and responsibilities. You may not be perfect in doing your duties and responsibilities. You may be full of faults doing your duties and responsibilities, but you can never give up doing your duties and responsibilities. That's the most, or one of the most important messages that you and I have to take away from the Bhagavad Gita. We cannot avoid our duties and responsibilities. No matter what happens, no matter how many difficult situations you are in, whether that other person appreciates you or not, criticizes you, you still have to do your duty. But how do you know what your duty is if you don't know what your identity is? So when you apply for a job, you can only apply for those jobs that you're qualified for. That determines what your duties and responsibilities are going to be. So similarly, in the spiritual life, your only identity is that you are a spirit soul. A spirit soul has certain duties and responsibilities on the platform of the soul. This physical body that you're occupying, you also have duties and responsibilities based on your body, which means you should be doing both of them simultaneously. You should be performing your duties and responsibilities on the platform of the soul. You should also be performing your duties and responsibilities based on bodily relationships. Both has to be practiced, which is you need to do Swadharma and Nitya Dharma. Swadharma is your duties and responsibilities based on your body, which means I'm a woman, I'm a man, I'm a child, I am whatever. Nitya Dharma means I am an eternal soul. So you should also be performing your duties and responsibilities to address the needs of the soul. So if we are only focusing on the needs of the body, Krishna is saying you are leading half a life. Krishna says you are leading an animal life. Because only a human being understands the concept of soul, consciousness, intelligence, etc. So essentially, our consciousness determines the reality we are creating for ourselves. So a lot of people will ask during these classes, colleagues are difficult, they criticize, they get into unnecessary fights, families are critical. Your reality will change when your consciousness is coming to the realm of the spiritual side. Suddenly your reality will change. Little things will not upset you anymore. You will learn to tolerate and ignore other people's mistakes and faults. So your consciousness determines your reality. So if you've learned to train your mind to be calm and peaceful, nothing that another person does will disturb you. Now that can only come through sadhana. It cannot come through any other means. And sadhana means certain practices that allows you to get in touch with your deeper self and a higher being, in this case, the Supreme Lord, right? So your consciousness determines your reality. So we'll stop here for the day, and we will take up session 2 of Jiva tomorrow, where we'll use examples to understand some of these concepts a little bit better. So thank you very much for coming for the session today. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.